Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.
Lieutenant Kernel Stuart Scheller has pleaded guilty to all charges. The Marine Corps officer was locked up for criticizing military leadership after 13 troops were killed during the withdrawal from Afghanistan. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller appeared in court at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina and pleaded guilty to all 6 charges, including disrespect toward superior commissioned officers and contempt toward officials. Scheller was relieved of his command and put in military prison after he posted videos demanding accountability from military leadership. During the trial, the judge asked Scheller why he posted the first video. Scheller responded, saying the defense secretary made decisions that led to the failure in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Hill reported that Scheller's attorney is trying to reach an agreement to get Scheller an honorable discharge or a discharge with honorable conditions. Scheller, who served in the Marine Corps since 2005, could lose pay and other military benefits if he receives a dishonorable discharge. Scheller's attorney says the sentencing hearing is scheduled for Friday morning. Jason Perry, NTD News.
You've probably heard of GoFundMe. Just set up your fundraiser, and if your cause is compelling enough, watch those donations pour in. But the company's taken down the fund of a high-profile nurse, a nurse who's challenging vaccine mandates in federal court. The company's reason? NTD's Miguel Moreno has the details.
Jennifer Bridges is suing her former employer, Houston Methodist Hospital, in federal court. She was fired alongside over 100 others for defying the hospital's COVID-19 vaccine mandate. The case is ongoing, but GoFundMe recently took down Bridges' fundraiser.
Well, they sent me an email after I had literally been on their GoFundMe site since April, and it said for COVID misinformation. Which I think is kind of funny because I don't see how suing my employer for firing me due to a mandate is any kind of misinformation.
Bridges tells me that based on what she's seen, GoFundMe is very censored and opinionated. She says the campaigns of other nurses and doctors have been taken down as well. A GoFundMe spokesperson told Business Insider when our team initially reviewed the fundraiser, it was within our terms of service, as the funds were for legal fees to fight vaccine mandates. The fundraiser has since been updated to include misinformation, which violates our terms of service. We asked GoFundMe what the fundraiser said specifically that violated their guidelines, but we haven't heard back. Bridges had accrued over $180,000 by the time the company pulled the plug on her fund. Fortunately for her, she didn't lose her donations, and she's found an alternative that a friend recommended: Give, Send, Go.
He was raising money to help with his son's funeral, and his son actually died after getting the COVID shot, the Pfizer shot, basically. And once they saw that, GoFundMe shut him down, and we were devastated by that. So he went to Give, Send, Go, and then he told me how great they were. So I signed up with them, and I was amazed. After only being on them for 1 week, I literally had a woman from their company call me because they're very Christian-based, and she wanted to pray with me because of what she saw we were going through, of what I posted.
Give, Send, Go co-founder Jacob Wells tells me he's not surprised about what happened to Bridges. He says GoFundMe has become more left-wing politically over the past few years.
Now, why do people choose Give, Send, Go? What are users telling you?
Well, our users are telling us that our platform is way better. I mean, that's one thing. We do offer things, the intangibles, like calling customers and being willing to invest into what they're doing by talking with them and praying with them. You're not going to find that on any other social media tech company platforms.
Wilson says they stand for freedom, and their mission is to spread the hope of Jesus Christ through crowdfunding. But like GoFundMe, Give, Send, Go has its terms. For example, Wells told me they won't host fundraisers whose purposes are to harm someone, so hosting a pro-abortion fundraiser is out of the question. Bridges told me her case is pending. She appealed a federal judge's ruling in June. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Social networking platform LinkedIn is going offline in China. The company says that's because it's under growing pressure from Beijing's censorship rules. so it'll release a new app there instead. That app won't allow individual users to share content. NTD's Allison Lee brings us more.
Microsoft's LinkedIn announced Thursday that they are going to shut down the Chinese version of their platform later this year. They say they're facing a significantly more challenging operating environment and greater compliance requirements in China. LinkedIn launched a localized version for China in 2014, and it is the last major U.S. social media platform openly accessible in China. The company acknowledges that when they launched the Chinese app, they agreed to adhere to the Chinese regime's internet requirements. Beijing requires all internet companies operating in China to hand over user data and censor on demand. LinkedIn explains their decision back then. While we strongly support freedom of expression, we took this approach in order to create value for our members in China and around the world. After the Chinese version is shut down, the company will launch a new standalone app called InJobs in China later this year. InJobs will not include a social feed or the ability to share posts or articles. LinkedIn explains their goal moving forward is to work with Chinese businesses to help them create economic opportunity and deliver more prosperity in the world. Back in March, Chinese internet regulators told LinkedIn to censor what the regime called political content. And just last month, the company blocked the profiles of several U.S. journalists in China for posting prohibited content. China is currently LinkedIn's third largest market globally after the U.S. and India. Allison Lee, NTD News.
The U.S. is back on the United Nations Human Rights Council as an official member. That's the UN body that former President Trump quit in 2018 for protecting human rights abusers. The Biden administration made it clear from day one that they would rejoin.
Please proceed to collect the ballot papers.
The UN General Assembly on Thursday re-elected 5 members and elected 13 new members, including the U.S., to its Human Rights Council. The following 18 countries will serve on the council for 3 years, beginning January 1st, 2022.
Argentina, Benin, Cameroon, Eritrea, Finland, Gambia, Honduras, India, Kazakhstan, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Malaysia, Montenegro, Paraguay, Qatar, Somalia, United Arab Emirates, United States of America.
The council was founded in 2006, has 47 members, and is based in Geneva, Switzerland. The U.S. got the second lowest number of votes among the elected members, beating out only Eritrea. That's a country in East Africa with an authoritarian regime and a poor human rights record.
Number of votes obtained by each member state: Finland 180, Luxembourg 180, United States of America 168, Canada 1, Israel 1, Italy 1.
The Human Rights Council has been under scrutiny in recent years for having members with poor human rights records. That's one of the reasons the Trump administration pulled the U.S. out in 2018. Current members of the council include Communist China, Cuba, Venezuela, Russia, Libya, and Pakistan. Here's what then U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, said at the time.
In doing so, I want to make it crystal clear that this step is not a retreat from human rights commitments. On the contrary, we take this step because our commitment does not allow us to remain a part of a hypocritical and self-serving organization that makes a mockery of human rights.
In a statement following the election to the Human Rights Council, Secretary of State Antony Blinken thanked the UN member states for allowing the U.S. to rejoin. He says the Council plays a meaningful role in protecting human rights and fundamental freedoms by documenting atrocities in order to hold wrongdoers accountable. Blinken promises to work hard to ensure the Council upholds its highest aspirations. But he also notes the Council suffers from serious flaws, including disproportionate attention on Israel and the membership of several states with egregious human rights records.
Podcast host Joe Rogan accused CNN of outright lying. That's after the network said he took a horse dewormer to treat his COVID infection. But CNN's own medical doctor said they should not have called it that. The drug in question is known as ivermectin. Here's NTD's Kevin Hogan with more on that and a CNN anchor's rebuttal.
A medical doctor for CNN, Sanjay Gupta, appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience. Rogan pressed him on CNN's characterization of a drug that Rogan used to treat his COVID infection.
Rogan telling his 13 million Instagram followers that he was treated with several drugs, and he included ivermectin on the list, a drug used for livestock that the FDA and the CDC warn against using to treat COVID.
Ivermectin has two different forms, according to WebMD, one for humans and the other for animals. Gupta admitted that the network should not have called the medicine Rogan took a horse dewormer.
Does it bother you that the news network you work for out and out lied, just outright lied about me taking horse dewormer?
They shouldn't have said that.
Why did they do that?
I don't know.
Rogan said he used ivermectin that was prescribed to him by a doctor, along with monoclonal antibodies, which Gupta says were what likely helped him recover. CNN did not immediately respond to NTD's request for comment, but one of their news anchors, Don Lemon, defended the company's reporting.
Ivermectin is a drug that is commonly used as a horse dewormer. So it is not a lie to say that the drug is used as a horse dewormer. I think that's important, and it is not approved for COVID.
According to the FDA, animal ivermectin products are very different from those approved for humans, and that the drug is approved for human treatment of infections from parasites and as a treatment for head lice, but it is not approved to treat COVID. The FDA also says it can sometimes be highly dangerous to treat COVID with drugs that aren't approved. But an increasing number of doctors around the world believe in the efficacy of ivermectin against COVID-19. Rogan said he contracted COVID on September 1st, and he said he recovered from the disease 1 week later. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
A 20-year wildland firefighter for the U.S. Forest Service is one of many federal employees who are facing termination if they don't get vaccinated. NTD had an exclusive interview with the firefighter who says this is about more than a vaccine.
Jody Baxter has been a wildland firefighter for the United States Forest Service for over 20 years.
I've been on engine crews, helicopter crews, hot shot type 1 hand crews, and spent 12 years as a U.S. Forest Service smoke jumper. And for those of you that don't know, we parachute out of airplanes down to wildfires that are difficult to get to put them out while they get small.
Now he is an assistant fire management officer with the U.S. Forest Service in North Carolina. But since President Biden ordered the vaccine mandate for all federal employees under the executive branch, Baxter and many other federal employees are facing dire consequences if they don't get the vaccine.
We've been told that if we don't get the vaccine, we will face disciplinary action up to and including termination from our position.
He said there could be a possibility for a religious exemption, but things are constantly changing.
The process that we've always used for religious accommodations and medical accommodations, that's been the system that we've used for years now. We're told that that's not going to be the same system and criteria that we use. However, there's no information on what the new criteria will be. We're just told that guidance is forthcoming.
Baxter and others have decided to take a stand for their freedom.
I'm part of a small group. It's went from about 2 people to almost 130 in the last couple of weeks. Mainly U.S. Forest Service firefighters, but also other federal agencies. We've linked up with other small groups. So we're starting to come together, and we're starting to realize that there's more and more of us out there that think this is wrong, think this is unconstitutional, and are going to take a stand and say, we're not doing it. We're not going to submit. We're not going to obey. We're going to make our own decisions about our health.
Baxter said his group has now merged with a larger group called Federal Employees for Freedom.org. He says this organization has laid the groundwork for legal challenges in the foreseeable future because they believe the vaccine mandates are unconstitutional. Baxter says federal employees who want to take a stand against the vaccine mandates can get support there, and anyone who wants to support the cause can visit the website.
My wife, my children, my family, they stand behind me because they know that this is more than just about a vaccine. This is about standing up for what's right, standing up for America and the freedoms and the values that we grew up with.
Baxter is willing to put his job on the line for what he believes is the right thing to do. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Last month, real estate heir Robert Durst was found guilty of murdering his friend Susan Berman. In a Los Angeles County courtroom, a judge sentenced him to life in prison without chance of parole.
Robert Durst was convicted by a jury last month for murdering his best friend Susan Berman in 2000. Los Angeles County prosecutors alleged that he killed Berman because she helped provide a false alibi for Durst in 1982, and he feared she would reveal that to the authorities. A Los Angeles County jury found him guilty of shooting Berman, 55, in the back of the head in her Beverly Hills home. The jury also found him guilty of the special circumstance of lying in wait and killing a witness, which carries a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Durst is the grandson of the founder of the Durst organization, one of New York City's premier real estate companies. He long ago left the company, which has developed some of Manhattan's signature skyscrapers.
A Bosnian village in southeastern Europe is believed to be one of the last to preserve medieval iron-making skills. Its pre-industrial technique relies solely on the power of water and fire and has been passed down through local families for centuries. Let's take a look.
First heated in a charcoal fire, then pounded by a large hammer. In this Bosnian village on the Balkan Peninsula, iron is still forged the same way as in the Middle Ages, using only the power of water and fire. It's one of the last known places in Europe to retain this medieval tradition.
My father was also taught this craft by his father. This forge is believed to have been established by the Jozelczyk family some 700 years ago. We worked here during the Ottoman rule. They also needed good craftsmen, and blacksmithing is a form of art. A real blacksmith must be an artist.
The first written mention of this blacksmith village dates back to 1485. A nearby river powers the 3-century-old forges that still operate here. In this blacksmith family, the craft of iron making has been passed on for generations.
It is my turn now. It remains to be seen what the future will bring. But as long as we can earn a living working here in this way, we don't plan to change anything.
For more than 50 years, cookware has replaced agricultural tools as the best-selling products from the forges. Among them is this lidded iron dish, used for slow-cooking meat and vegetables under hot embers. While the blacksmiths are happy to adapt their range of products for the modern age, they're not abandoning their ancestral skills.
There are many blacksmiths, some better than others, but the way in which we work, utilizing the power of water, not relying on electric power much, heating iron in charcoal fires that you cannot find anywhere else.
But challenges are also present. For one, the area once had its own charcoal burners. But as some of the ancient foundries began to close, they didn't pass on that trade to anyone else in the village. There are just 3 of them left today. Now, every year they hire a charcoal burner from 60 miles away to burn wood for them. The process involves digging out a large hole in the ground and building a large heap of logs over it. Then it's covered with grass, moss, and earth before a fire is ignited inside. The pile usually burns for 15 days, slowly settling until the hole he dug out is filled with charcoal. But despite the obstacles, the fire of this ancient craft is still alight in the village.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Don't forget to catch all of our programs on TV. NTD Evening News is on every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Find your local NTD channel at ntd.com/TV.